Welcome back to the show. This is Faraz Siddiqui, Waiver Wire Tuesday. We have some very interesting names on tap for you to grab off of waivers. But first, let's talk Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins looked real good. Maybe better than he's ever looked on a Monday night. He's never been the best primetime quarterback in his career, maybe one of the worst. But he was slinging last night, man. Okay? The Vikings got the win. Jordan Addison, and here it was, man. This was his breakout game on primetime. 7 catches for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. 22% target share. Still not getting that elite target share, but like the dude has been efficient. 6 touchdowns in 7 games. He's pulling like a Jahan Dotson from last year. But that touchdown at the end of the half when he ripped it out of the defender's hands after what looked like an interception initially, he's a dog, okay? So I hope you had him in your lineup last night. He did get a little bit banged up, but it turned out to just be a cramp, so he's fine. Tyjae Hawkinson also got banged up in this game. He had a major target share as well. He led the team in targets. It looks like an ankle injury. He did return to the game. Keep an eye out for this one because, there were some rumblings that this can be a high ankle injury. So monitor this moving into week 8. You might want to keep an eye on some waiver wire tight ends just in case. Not trying to scare you here, but just want to make sure that you're prepared. All right, that's the name of the game. Another note from this game, Cam Akers worked his way into the rotation a lot more than before. Last week it was all Madison. This week he moved up to a 39% snap share, had 13 opportunities to Madison's 11. Okay, so now this is something to definitely take note of here. Okay, he's on the waiver wire list around number 15, 16, so he should be rostered in case this continues. Brandon Ayuk was on his way to a nice game, caught 5 catches for 57 yards in the first half, and then completely disappeared in the second half when the 49ers offense just looked a little lost. Not the type of game you want from Ayuk, but this does present a nice buy low opportunity if you need a high-end wide receiver too. Speaking of high-end wide receiver too, is Chris Olave arrested for reckless operation of a motor vehicle. He was driving 70 in a 35. Not a huge deal. I'm assuming this wasn't a residential area. I've seen a lot of places where, the posted speed limit is 35 and it's just like, why? It should be 50, okay? It should be 55. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know where he was driving, but I don't think this is a big deal. He's not going to get disciplined for it. Not really worried about it at all in terms of his fantasy value or anything like that, or this having an impact on fantasy. Remember that Jordan Addison also did something way worse during the offseason, and even that didn't turn out to be a huge deal at all. Jerome Ford has a low-grade high ankle sprain, according to Adam Schefter. Usually high ankle sprains mean that running backs are missing more time than the 1 to 2 weeks that they initially reported on. Okay, so I think Kareem Hunt has to be grabbed if he's available on waivers. He's rostered in more than 50% of leagues, but not more than 65%. So he could very well be available in a lot of leagues. Okay, so make sure to check in yours. The NFL is looking into why the Falcons didn't report Bijan Robinson's injury. Good, okay? It was against the rules. They should have reported it, and now Arthur Smith is in trouble. Good. Bijan should be good to go for next week. Please don't overreact on Bijan, okay? If anything, buy low. He should be good to go next week. Deshaun Watson is going to get another MRI on his shoulder. This sounds like a re-aggravation. I'm moving Amari Cooper today if I can. Okay, I doubt Watson plays this week. He could be out for longer. We'll talk about some QB waiver wire options for this week as well at the end of this episode. Justin Fields won't play this week either, but the silver lining for DJ Moore is that he received a 35% target share with 89% of his targets deemed as catchable. Okay, that's probably a lot better than any of us thought. Okay, so real good news there. All right, let's get into waivers. First, let's check on who might be available in your league. Okay, these guys are available in like 40 to 50% of leagues, right? Normally we talk about the guys who are available in more than 50% of leagues, but we're going to talk about guys who could be available kind of like just above that cusp. So those guys, right? Let's start it off with Rashee Rice. 65% route participation on Sunday, season high. For context, Kelley ran at a 78% route participation in this game. So 65% is actually a lot better knowing that. Just ran a few less routes than Travis Kelce in this game. He's seeing a 28% target share per route run. He's only behind Kelce in end zone looks this year. And according to FantasyLife.com, he's now at 3 top 36 finishes, 1 top 24 finish. And then this past week, he had his first top 15 finish. Okay, so I think he's going to be a high-end wide receiver 3 for me going into this game in Denver. Check if Kareem Hunt's available. Like I said, he's going to get a ton of opportunity with Jerome Ford out. He's number 2 on this check to see if available list I think it'll still be a timeshare between Hunt and Pierre Strong, and Strong will get his touches and should be picked up as well. But Hunt is available in 30 to 40% of leagues. So if he is available in yours, he's one of the top priorities this week. I think he'll be a solid RB2 start in Seattle. Ford could be out a couple of weeks, okay? They got Seattle, Arizona, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Denver. If this injury lingers, there are really good matchups here. And even when Ford is back, Hunt should remain very involved. Josh Palmer's looking like Justin Herbert's clear wide receiver 2. I have him next up on this list. He went over 100 yards in this game. He's an every week wide receiver 3 right now. Could still be available in your league. Chuba Hubbard is next up here at 5. Again, this is a list of guys who can be available, and then we'll get into the list of guys who are available in more than 50% of leagues. But Hubbard has been efficient, and he's been more efficient than Miles Sanders this year. He's had the best game of any Panthers running back before the bye with Sanders out, and now we could see a legit timeshare moving forward, right? Frank Reich just came out and said that this is going to be a committee approach moving forward. So it looks like Hubbard has earned more playing time here. I'm not necessarily grabbing Hubbard over some of these other waiver wire options like Henderson or Demercado, especially if I need a start this week, or Tyjae Spears, more of a better long-term ad just in case Derrick Henry gets moved and that sort of thing. But again, Chuba Hubbard, I'd be happy to pick him up. I don't think he's going to dethrone Sanders completely, but there is a chance that he gets enough work where he's flex worthy week in and week out. Dalton Schultz is at 6 here. He's scored in 3 straight games before the bye. He's also received target shares of 33% and 29% over the last 2 games. Now, it is worth noting that Tank Dell, who is one of the top wide receiver waiver pickups this week, he was not available for about 1.5 of those games. And we could see that target share shift over to Dell, since he was getting 20% plus target share in the previous 2 games, where Schultz only had 7% and 12%. Okay, so if you're picking up Schultz, just keep that in mind. Romeo Doubs is at 6 on this list. Christian Watson has a knee injury. We'll see if that means he misses time. But Doubs was the guy when Watson was out and banged up. If Doubs is not rostered, in case he was dropped, you should pick him up. And if Watson is out, he's a wide receiver 3 start. Jackson Smith and the Jigba came through last week with DK Metcalf missing. He was a great stash for me either way. I'm assuming Metcalf will be back this week. I'm not necessarily starting JSN, but I will be stashing him for a potential second half of the season breakout. A couple of wide receivers to end this list at 8, 9, and 10. Curtis Samuel, KJ Osborne, Elijah Moore in case you need to dig deep to plug in at wide receiver. But there definitely are some better wide receiver names on the actual waiver wire list that I'm going to get into now, like Josh Downs and Tank Dell. Before I get into that list, if you could do me a huge favor, open up your podcast app and click follow, add, or subscribe on your podcast. Or if you could subscribe over on YouTube, that would mean the world to me. It helps this podcast out a ton. It helps more people find it. It helps us grow, and it helps us make it better overall. So thank you. All right, so at number 1, we have Josh Downs. He's been on our waiver wire list for several weeks now. He should have been picked up, but he's available in a ton of leagues. He's received a 21% target share from Gardner Minshew this year. The Week 6 game really brought that down, but he saw a 25% target share entering that game, and then in a very tough matchup against the Browns, he saw a 29% target share this past Sunday, according to Fantasy Life's utilization report. Minshew got it done against a tough defense. Downs faced 2 of the toughest defense against the slot over the past 2 weeks. This week they get the Saints, and they've been tough against perimeter wide receivers, but they are somewhat vulnerable to the slot. And we saw that play out last week with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. So Downs should probably be in lineups in Week 8. Alontae Taylor, the Saints nickel corner, he's given up 3 touchdowns in his coverage so far this year through 7 weeks, okay? Downs had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. Can it be a third? At number 2 is Tank Dell. Don't sleep on Dell. He had 23% and 25% target shares in weeks 2 and 3. He had a rough game in Week 4, then got concussed in Week 5. He was out Week 6 with the concussion, and then he had the bye week in Week 7. Okay, so we just haven't seen it for a month. Let's not forget about the potential upside here. To command those type of target shares in your first 3 weeks of your career means something, and I'd look to add a potential upside wide receiver 3 for the rest of the year. At number 3, we have Darrell Henderson. We talked about him at length on yesterday's episode already, but he can definitely provide some RB2 starts for you over their next 3 games, which is actually 4 weeks because they had the bye after 2 weeks. So they do have Dallas this week, so not the best matchup in the world, and then Green Bay and Seattle after the bye, solid matchups. But you can still start him against Dallas this week. He's not a complete avoid because this Rams offense can definitely move the ball. Emari Demercado is at number 4. He's a pickup if you need an RB2 start over the next 2 weeks before James Conner comes back. He took a clear control of this backfield this past week. Keontae Ingram wasn't even involved at all. He only played on special teams. And while this might seem like a back and forth situation, and you might not be able to trust it, that's not really how I see it. Okay, Ingram was the backup to Conner. He got his opportunity last week. He stunk. He wasn't as good as Demercado looked in week 6. So now he's the guy. And Demercado is a pass catcher as well, so the target should be there for him. I can see him having a solid game against the Ravens at home this week, just like Jahmyr Gibbs did, the week before. At number 5, we have Tyjae Spears. He's the guy, that you want long term. If you don't necessarily need that short term start, I'd probably prioritize Spears over like Henderson and Demercado. Number 1, he's startable in a pinch if you need him. Number 2, if anything were to happen to Derrick Henry, he'll be a high upside running back the rest of the way. And number 3, Derrick Henry can potentially be traded away. Okay, he's kind of on the trade block right now. And if that happens, wheels up for Tyjae the rest of the way. At number 6, I have Dalton Kincaid. First of all, he had his first big game. He caught 8 of 8 targets for 75 yards. That was a 22% target share from Josh Allen. But also, Dawson Knox is getting wrist surgery. And who knows how long he'll be out for. In the interim, Kincaid will be the guy. He'll have an opportunity to potentially get more playing time as well if he shows out, and then when Knox comes back, maybe he continues to be the guy. I have Devin Singletary at number 7. Before the bye, this was the timeshare in that game between him and Dameon Pierce. He looked good. They have Carolina this week, okay? So if you need a spot start, he's your guy. But also, I'd be interested to see what the split looks like this week in case he can continue to be fantasy relevant. But if this continues, this timeshare continues out of the bye here, he's a solid flex start in this game against a very, very bad rushing defense. At number 8, I have Kyler Murray. It looks like he's all ready to come back at this point. We might not see him until a couple of weeks, but it's possible he's back like week 9-ish. Potentially, he'll be an instant QB1, most likely at that point, maybe low-end QB1 to start. So if you're in need of a QB, he should be prioritized. Michael Mayer's at 9. He didn't have a big game this past week, but the Raiders got blown out. Backups started coming in, but Mayer was on the field for almost every snap before that happened. You love to hear that. So if he gets dropped or if he's still available, he's still a priority tight end pickup in case Dalton Kincaid is not available. Mayer might end up being the preferred one out of those two guys in several weeks in case Knox ends up coming back and then ruins Kincaid's playing time. Okay, Jimmy G, it looks like he'll be back on Monday night next week. This week, I should say. At 10, I have Kendrick Bourne. Who knows if this continues for him? Okay, 2 straight games. We've seen this before. And this Pats offense isn't so reliable. However, 90% route participation 3 weeks in a row and 26% target share over that span. Okay? That ain't nothing. It could be something. So he should be rostered. It looks like Roschon Johnson will be back this week. He's at 11. He still has one more hurdle to clear when it comes to clearing the concussion protocol, but according to his head coach, it looks like he will. Okay, we talked about it on yesterday's show. If he's back, my assumption would be that it will be a 1-2 punch between him and D'Onta Foreman. I think Roschon had a chance to be the guy if he didn't have the concussion, but now that Foreman has had some opportunity and he's done well with his opportunity, I think he stays involved until Khalil Herbert's back. So I'm still picking up Roschon. He'll likely be an upside flex play this week against the Chargers. The good thing is that if the Bears go down in this game, he'll be the guy on the field in passing situations. So guys, I'm going up to 20 here, okay? I have waiver wire pickups all the way to like number 35. That's available on our website, upperhandfantasy.com. We'll have an article up as well with my fab recommendations for all these guys. And also, that comes along with the article as well, kind of summarizing what we're talking about, in this episode. So make sure to go to upperhandfantasy.com. That's going to have our weekly rankings as well, for week 8, and a whole bunch of other stuff, trade charts, rest of the season rankings, dynasty rankings, all of it. All that was just updated as well very recently. And the rest of the season rankings will be updated every single week. Okay, so a lot to take a look at upperhandfantasy.com, as well as signing up for our free daily newsletter. Okay, scroll down to the bottom of that homepage and you'll see a little text box there. Just throw in your email and you'll sign up, and you'll get one every single morning for free to your email inbox. At number 12, I have Pierre Strong. He is the Kareem Hunt complement while Jerome Ford is hurt. So he's someone to grab to see what the share looks like. maybe he can end up with 40 to 45% of the rushing attempts, which will make him somewhat relevant in this offense. It's going to be a run-first offense. He could be an RB3 flex play if that were to be the case. And if Ford were to miss more games, Strong might be someone you want to have on your roster. Jalin Hyatt's at number 13. He's playing a much bigger role, close to a full-time route participation. He had a couple big plays in this past game, and he almost got a one-handed touchdown. He's somebody to pay attention to. Tyrod is the one who's been looking for him. He found him for a long touchdown, in the preseason as well. So there's a little bit of a connection there. However, we didn't see Jalin Hyatt have this full-time role when Daniel Jones was healthy. Okay, the hope is that he continues to be involved. So I think he's a little bit of an upside pickup this week. Royce Freeman is worth talking about as well. Darrell Henderson was the 1A, but Freeman was the 1B. Okay, he was very involved as well. He even had a goal line snap. He didn't get a touch there, but he had a snap. So that's something worth noting. So if you're in need of a running back and you're a little bit desperate, you need somebody to maybe plug in this week, I think Royce Freeman could be an option. Obviously, it's a long shot, but, I think he's worth adding in deeper leagues especially. Jameson Williams, his route participation moved up to about 50% this week. He had a rough game. Okay, he was getting targeted, he was getting open, he was getting separation, but he just couldn't come down with balls, man. Like one near the end zone, was it a perfect ball? That deep pass towards the end looked like a post route. Was it a perfect ball? No. Should he have caught it? Probably. Kind of went off his fingertips. The other one where he was running up the sideline and the ball hit him in the helmet. It looked like a pretty dumb play. However, the corner did kind of grab his hand and leave his arm down, which probably prevented him from moving his arm up to block his face mask. Okay, so I think he should be picked up. I think he caught that long touchdown the week before. If this Lions offense really picks up here, and we have no doubts about this offense at this point, I think he could be a big part of it. We just have to be a little bit patient with Jameson Williams. I talked about K-Makers already. He's at number 16. Jeff Wilson's at 17. Man, I'm not sure how much I'm interested in Jeff Wilson. They have two matchups right now before, their potentially star running back, Devon Achane, comes back. I can't imagine Jeff Wilson being so involved in this offense, unless someone like Raheem Mostert gets hurt. It'll most likely be Mostert and Achane as the top two backs, right? Achane probably as the number one back when he's ready to go. So where does Jeff Wilson fit in? So in deeper leagues, I think he's worth rostering to see what his role is this week, because maybe you pick him up this week and you don't really feel comfortable starting him after he hardly played last week, but he was coming off the injury and was coming off IR. But going into next week, maybe he gets a good role this week and then you're able to play him in week 9, right? That's kind of the hope there. But other than that, if you don't need him, you might not want to pick him up. And the reason why he's here is because Miami has such a good running game, so it could be worth something. At 18, I had Taysom Hill. He's been doing his thing over the past 2 games. And it's really a case of Roschon Johnson being out, right? So if he's out again this week, I think Taysom Hill is definitely in play at a tight end position. Josh Kelley, the reason why he's on this list at number 19 here is because Austin Eckler, he did suffer what seemed like a low ankle injury, not a high ankle sprain, hopefully. So just in case Eckler, they want to hold him out or whatever the case may be, you might want to pick up Josh Kelley so that he could give you a terrible game in your lineup once again. I love how that one game, like last week, Eckler comes back and then Josh Kelley has this long touchdown. Of course, right? And his other good game came in week 1 when, Eckler went up against the Dolphins, and of course he had his big game then. And when Eckler misses time, he can't have a good game. Come on. And then at 20, I have Jaleel McLaughlin. The backfield really shifted back, in Javonte Williams' favor in week 7. However, McLaughlin continues to look good, okay? So when guys can look this good, I want to roster them, okay? Because it is very possible that his role increases moving forward. And if it does, he could have some upside, okay? And also, Pierre's not involved that much. And then Javonte, he's coming off the ACL plus injury. He already had a hip injury, right? So I think McLaughlin is a good running back to at least hold on your bench for now. All right, that's our top 20. And, again, like I said, upperhandfantasy.com, I have waiver wire pickups all the way up to number 36. So if a bunch of these guys are rostered, you want to look a little deeper, you're in a deeper league, you might want to take a look at that, okay? All right, I have a couple of quarterbacks that I want to talk about real quick, quarterback streamers. A few guys have decent matchups this week. CJ Stroud at Carolina would probably be my number one streamer. Sam Howell against Philly, I think that could work out as well. Both of those guys are pretty good starts. And then it kind of gets a little iffy, right? Gardner Minshew, I think, against New Orleans could be interesting at home. Derek Carr at Indy, I know that's really, really tough, but it is a good matchup, right? And then Kenny Pickett against Jacksonville at home. He looked good last week, number one. Number two, he has Deontay Johnson back. Okay, so that could be good for Kenny Pickett moving forward. And then if you're really getting crazy, Mac Jones at Miami. Good matchup, but can you trust Mac Jones? Probably not. Tight end streamers, I mentioned Dalton Kincaid. Jake Ferguson against the Rams. Dalton Schultz at Carolina. He could be available in your league. Logan Thomas against Philly. And Jonnu Smith at Tennessee in that order. Okay? If you're looking for defensive streamers, sorry, can't find it here. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to go over our buys and our sells going into Week 8, and we'll talk soon. Take it easy. See ya.